actually thrive on that kind of thing. So, good morning and welcome. What a pleasure and a joy to be here with you, sharing in this beautiful day, this beautiful season. And I was telling someone earlier that this tight thing I have on is my mother's. I have to keep pulling it down. So I feel her with us this morning. I look over here all the time thinking I'm going to see her sitting over there where she always sat. I'm going to spend a few minutes actually talking about Christmas. I don't mean the hurried, worried materialism performance of Christmas. And I'm also not going to really spend much time delving into the actual Christmas story either. What I'm interested in is the transformative essence that inspires much of the world during this season. For most people, even many non-Christians, the birth of the Christ child is an annual event that evokes altruistic feelings, even in people that show no compassion for the rest of the year. This time is synonymous with love and peace and goodwill to all men and women. And we have to admit that even the most callous of people are most often caught up in this special feeling of the season. It is such a powerful narrative that it has persisted for over 2,000 years now. Perhaps the reason that the story is so evocative for all of us is that somewhere deep in the depths of our subconscious, it resonates with us. That although on the surface, the story of Christmas is a poignant account of the birth of a child, there's definitely more to it. If we look beneath the narrative, we can find a rich symbolism that explains why the story has such a broad appeal for all of us and contains so much transformative power. The Christmas story is full of emotional imagery, reminding us that Advent, meaning beginning of an event or the arrival of someone, is a time to celebrate our awakened Christ consciousness. Now, from a metaphysical perspective, I'm using Christ not to signify a specific person, but as a mindful perception, an experience of an inner spiritual state that is the union of ourselves with God, or energy, that is everything and everywhere. And I believe it is not just about the oneness of spirit that inspires us, but it is the comprehension of that relationship, the enlightened understanding of that relationship that is Christ consciousness. And so using this metaphysical viewpoint, what we celebrate at Christmas time is not exactly the birth of Jesus of Nazareth, the person, and not the birth of the Christ per se, but the birth of our Christ awareness. What Jesus brought to us was a spark of new light, new possibility, light that shines through the darkness of human confusion and illuminates the spiritual truth and path of who we are. For we are both the human and the spirit. We are both the truth itself and the path to truth. And here's the beauty. It doesn't just happen once. Every Christmas is a new birth, a new opportunity for each of us to give birth to more of the light and to commit ourselves to nurturing that light, trusting and believing in its presence within us, sending it forth with every choice we make to bring a more expression, a more full expression of itself. And if we go even deeper, the Christ Mass, Christmas, is an awakened experience we can have every moment of our lives. Christmas often evokes a nostalgic longing to return to the place where we have roots, where we feel safe and comforted, to share a renewed fellowship. For some, that is with family, for others with friends or colleagues. It's a kind of coming home. Each time we gather here together in this place, it's a homecoming. As truth students, coming home may signify a conscious effort to turn from the over-preoccupation at the whirling circumference of life and living, and to get centered at the still small point within, where we feel our oneness with the divine self, God, the energy of the universe, or whatever name you give it. And to feel our oneness with every person on the planet. It is our time of inner growth through our shared transformation. This is Christmas. Jesus' parable of the prodigal son is an excellent example of this personal growth and transformation. The prodigal goes out into the far country, away from home, represents those times when we are driven by interests and aspirations that are centered in the external out there, the other country, the other place away from us. But then we are faced with an inner hunger that tells us we can't live by material and sensual satisfaction alone. Like the prodigal, we come to know want. And it seems to get even heightened during this time of year. Which means we realize that there is more, we come to realize that there is more to life than the far country, living on the circumference of life. In the story, the prodigal eventually came to himself and said, I will arise and go on to my father. The Father in the story represents the presence of God, of spirit, of divinity within. In other words, he woke to his true God self, his Christ consciousness. He came home. And so what is home? We've been told the whole kingdom is within. And hopefully, we've gone from the place of saying, this is what I need, and past the place of saying, this is what I want, to that inner awareness that knows, this is what I'm ready for. This is what I'm ready to open to, ready to accept, ready to allow, ready to embrace. Going back to the Christmas story for a moment, perhaps the baby in the story represents ourselves in all of our innocence and vulnerability, stripped of any of the trappings of our everyday lives. The image of the baby being born in the lowest of surroundings, a stable, reminds us that on a spiritual level there is no richer, no poorer, weaker or stronger. We are all equal and all one in spirit, in the inescapable energy force of creation. So how much can you give birth to today and feel comfortable about it? And if there's something in you that hesitates, that says, the kingdom is too much responsibility, too much to understand, never mind. Begin where you are. It is enough. Begin as you are. You are enough. Open the door enough to let the light through. And as you open slowly, little by little by little by little, you'll find yourself opening more and more and more until you come to a place where there is not the light in you, but the light as you. There's something in you that knows what you're ready to give birth to. Don't try. Don't force. Don't plead. Don't feel separate from you. It is you. And you've come to this place in your journey where you can no longer ignore it. You have to stretch. You have to give way. For this is your fulfillment. This is your very reason for being. It's easy to become preoccupied during this season with wanting something that we neglect to be something. We all get caught up in the decorating, the buying, the giving, the cards, the food. It can be rather overwhelming. If you notice, we spend a lot of time wanting presents, wanting friends, wanting to be taller, thinner, darker, lighter, richer, smarter, wanting recognition, wanting love. But what I'm suggesting is what Walt Whitman's saying. I celebrate myself. This is not a song of egotism, but rather a self-affirming, self-giving, self-loving celebration. And in this sense, self refers to the higher self that is all selves. When you came in today, you were given a small sticker, or I don't know if you saw them, they were in a little thing at the door. There you go. And it says, the spirit of peace is you and me. It's a little something I made up to give to all of you. It's a reminder that the Spirit is the very definition of oneness, wholeness. I've often told this story of a time when I lived in New York City, and on Christmas Eve, or just before Christmas, I would go into McDonald's and I would buy 5 or 6 cups of hot chocolate. And I would put them in a bag, and I would walk around handing them out to people who were homeless on the street. And I would often sit down and chat with them for a few minutes. I learned so much about their journey. But mostly I learned about myself. As we allow ourselves to do for others without expectation of them doing for us, we are actually discovering a path toward more fully understanding and revealing who we are. No matter the height we find ourselves or the depth to which we may descend, the unfinished masterpiece of our lives is always the lesson of love. When we find ourselves in the perception of fear, it is in the absence of the awareness of love. Those experiences taught me, prepared me to work at emptying myself of judgment and preconceptions. Once you allow yourself the vulnerability of being emptied, the journey itself continues to open you. Bless where you've been. Embrace where you are. Welcome where you go. For ultimately, there's only one direction. Christmas is forever a wonder in the heart, a light in the mind, a glory in the soul. You never really get to the end of it. It's an expanding universe of inspiration that ever reveals some new beauty, some greater understanding, deeper compassion, an increased awareness of our spiritual life and being. It is more than just a season of the year. It is a season of the heart. The time rich with mysteries. The mystery of God, the mystery of Spirit, the mystery of us. Combined with the warmth of human love, for a brief moment, we can transcend, we can transform, we can become. We're grateful for this season and this celebration because it reminds us of a teaching, reminds us of a light expressed through a teacher, but a teacher who told us of our own light. You are the celebration, the star within you, shining always. The wisdom and strength and beauty is within you. The Christmas is your birth. You can connect to it in every moment, at every breath. It is always longing to give you the gifts of wisdom, of love, of joy, and of oneness. The truth is, there's a force and a spirit welling up in you, in everyone. And that is the transformation bringing light to the world, making Christmas happen. And we shall know that truth